Do you love to garden so much that you're willing to do anything to continue a harvest? Well, first of all, I know you love to garden because you're sitting here listening to the Backyard Gardens podcast. But are you willing to go out there and grab your little shovel and stick it in the ground and overwinter something so you can continue to harvest it or save it for next year? Well, that's what we're going to talk about right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening, as we learn to grow and grow for change. I declare thumb war. That's what we should do after we do the intro. I declare thumb war.
Oh, I always lost it, though.
Oh, man. Yeah. I had the weakest thumbs.
My reaction time isn't that great when it comes to
No, and now I play it with my son. He's like, you always beat me. And I'm like, son, my thumbs are like 4 times bigger than yours. Of course I am. But are you ready to overwinter stuff?
I am, for the umpteenth year.
I'm tired of talking about the W word, personally. I think after this show, we should just start talking about the S word, spring only.
Yeah, that's the S word I want to talk about. So I am officially claiming, so this is in advance of, clearly we're recording in advance of the day that it airs, but based on when this airs, my first frost date average would be tomorrow, the 29th, right? So this airs on the 28th, and I am already claiming a November first frost date. I'm claiming it. I know I shouldn't say it out loud, but it's been said. It's written.
That's disgusting that you would do that. You're going to be so heartbroken. No. It's
going to make me happy until the moment it happens. So if it does come in October, I'll be happy right up until that point. Yeah. So let's focus on that.
And you know what? I'm going to continuously be happy because all my plants are frost tolerant. Just saying.
Oh, well, there's that. There is that.
So we actually have 2 listener questions today. Yeah, one of them's super simple. We got a question that said, hey, where are your t-shirts on your website? I can't find them. Well, since you asked, I put them all on the website. It's kind of like a roundabout way because they are on spring.com. But if you go to our website, there's a shirt section you can go through. And if you click on the shirt or whatever piece of, I guess we can call it garden swag, whatever that you like, it'll take you to that website. But it's on there at backyardgardenstv.com. So you can see it. So there's that. And ding. Leonard just got real happy. And so the other question is, well, what is it, Batavia? Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were going to comment on the Backyard Gardens hoodies, which they're in the back of my closet. So I'm pushing it off. So I'm not wearing mine just yet. But get geared up for the winter.
I didn't even think about the hoodies. Sorry. I don't like wearing them.
Well, yeah, because you're in a tank top.
Yeah.
And I'm in shorts, completely miscalculated, a t-shirt, and like a kind of a house sweater that I normally wear. So still no socks, guys and gals. All right. So we're ready to move on to the next question?
Sure.
And I'm going to paraphrase because this is a question that I think we see often, but it was asked more recently. And it is, where do you get your seeds? And so this is oftentimes, and I'm going to make a leap here, it's oftentimes asked when one of us are showing parts of our garden, parts of our vegetable plants and such. And so my assumption is that there's a connection between what they're seeing and they're like, hey, I want that. Where are you getting the seeds that creates that? Did I frame that up right?
Yeah. It's a classic thing that you get. It's this new, it's a new social thing that's going on because of YouTube, where you have to see something and you're like, I want to do what you're doing. What is X, Y, and Z? You're drawing, what pen are you using? You're using a camera, what camera are you using? Like, it matters. I mean, I just kind of answered it right there. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I'm going to remove the idea that there are some pretty shitty online resources to get seeds from. So that does exist. It's kind of like, have you ever seen, maybe not so much, but there's like these memes that go around for wish.com where it's like, this is the outfit that you bought and this is what, you were looking to buy that was on their website and this is what you got from Wish.
Yeah, like you buy a pair of boxers kind of, and you get a thong or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there is that, but there's so many reputable places to buy seeds, whether it's local or whether it's online. Yes, young Ben.
You just said it. Reputable. A reputable company.
Well, I mean, I know the words that I said.
I know, but that's really the answer to the question. Ultimately, find a reputable company. But we've talked about this on the show before, and my sneaking suspicion is a lot of these places, the seeds all come from the same place.
Yeah, that's the key.
There's
right?
certain farms that produce the seeds, and then they just outsource with some fancier than normal packaging for some that are misleading and then some are not, and there's all these different aspects, but generally speaking they just come from the same farm. So
yeah, it's and if I go back to the most recent version of this question, it was under a video where there wasn't anything that was like super unique. Right. So there are some varieties that you kind of have to hunt for. They aren't at, every big box store, home improvement store. They aren't at every, online site, and obviously there's a difference between your heirloom seeds that some companies exclusively provide, and then other companies carry small supplies of them. It's not that. Like I'm looking at, there's a bell pepper that I'm showing and you're like, where do you get your seeds from? Right. And so, I mean, I do appreciate the idea of save me some trouble, because that's a part of what we're doing. For me specifically, I want to save you the pain if I can, but that's not where the pain comes from. Right. I've gotten some things like I ordered, I think it's pronounced Corno de Toro. I'm probably butchering it. And I looked back and I ordered the red variety of the pepper. It's a sweet pepper. And it took me until like August to realize, well, these are yellow, because it starts green and then it's like, so then I look around and like every place I have that pepper planted, they're yellow. I go back online and I actually see a couple of comments that said the same exact thing. Ordered red, got yellow. So, I mean, that's not what this person's asking. That's not what all the people before them have asked, right?
Your opening, so when we discussed having this question, we didn't say we were going to go into this portion of it, but when we discussed this, I was presenting this as an episode, and then you said, well, we could have that as a question of the day. And I said, well, sure. And so here we are 45 minutes into the episode. No. People did not have a time loss scenario. Hashtag American Horror Stories if you're watching this season. Awesome. But, no, so like for instance, and this is all I'm going to say about this. I bought Queen Lime Red zinnias, and they all came out dull muted pink. Every single one of them was super small flowers, and it was misrepresented to me. And this is from a very reputable, a very well-known company. So you have to be very careful about what you get. But the real. And I think you hit on it just right. Some companies will sell a lot of like heirlooms and stuff like that. And so when you see one of our gardens, you might say, well, hey, why I want a 9-foot tall tomato. Like, where'd you get your seeds from? Well, it's not where did I get my seed. It's what seed am I using? What variety?
Come on, somebody.
Because if I grow my Roma tomatoes, they're going to get 5 feet and they're going to stop. If I grow my yellow orange banana tomatoes, they're going to get 9 feet and then they're going to keep climbing to the sky. And I think there's a little bit of confusion about that. So it's not where, it's what seed.
Yeah, and I'm going to add this comment, and I'm going to phrase it in the way that you did, as if this is the last thing we're going to say about that. I saw what you were doing there.
For today.
So there's the other thing that's underlined, and we hit on this just a couple episodes ago. When you look at something in someone's garden and then you're inspired to grow or interested in growing that thing, or my favorite is you've grown that thing and had trouble with it, it's all about the growing condition.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the gardener, right? But what happens when I had it in the back corner of my garden and that thing was supposed to get 6 feet tall, but it only got 2 feet tall because guess what? There's no light in that back corner of my garden.
Right.
So.
And things will grow to the amount of light you give them. Now, that's a whole series, which I about called you Kelly. So that shows our relationship, Batavia. So that Batavia and I are talking about creating. And then the part that I said, like, this is all I'm going to say about it right here, and that's it. That's why we want to have a Patreon, so we can talk about these certain things that need to be talked about, but we can't talk about them just yet because we got to fund all of this effort. So if you feel so inclined, like cheap plug, you can become a patron to help that task, because this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I respect the question that people are throwing out, like, where do you get your seeds? Where do you get your seeds? But just remember, like, all of our gardens are going to be different. Everything's going to grow differently. And sometimes you get a bad seed. You know, I will say sometimes you get a bad seed, but you should not get a whole pack of bad seeds. So there's that as well. And when you see that you've planted something and everything that you planted from that pack is coming out bad, you need to look at what you're growing. So there's, all right, we're running out of time. You got to look at what you're growing, where you're growing it, where it came from, and is it meant to be there? Those are the things you should look for, because what can grow good for Batavia cannot grow good for me. Why are you shaking your head?
I can't believe that. Gosh, you're out here with the mic drop moments and within 10 minutes of the episode. So that said, you can feel free to DM us and ask where we get seeds from. It's fine, right? My answer is normally these, home improvement stores and then a few different websites, because that's where I get seeds from, because the question often is asked in a very, very general way. So if you're curious, feel free to ask, but please take into account the last 7 minutes of conversation. 7 minutes are my lucky number. Don't go back 8 minutes, because there's no good information.
No,
8 minutes
and you
ago.
said it right. If you go into some kind of store, like a home improvement store or something, you're going to get a reputable seed company that's, they're not going to sell generally some kind of trash. I mean, dude, I've grown seeds that I've gotten out of the grocery store, like packets of seeds they're fine.
A really big thing, I see it all the time, Dollar Tree seeds.
Yeah.
So while their prices are probably going up, you could get in some places 4 packages of seeds for $1. Now, this is the thing, and damn it, I'm going to save it. And the only thing I'm going to say is how many seeds come in a packet.
Yep.
That's
so,
something
and
to
the
consider.
other thing about buying from Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Family Dollar, all those kind of discount places is more than likely they're old seed. So just keep that into account. That's why that stuff is there. And there was actually an article posted not too long ago, not even gardening related, but it stated, don't get your medications from these, which are the companies I just said, because they're more than likely going to expire soon, or they've already expired. So just be very aware of that. But on that note, we're going to stop right here, because this is going to go in deep, and we need to talk.
I still have so much to say, so I'm just gonna bite my tongue and
hey, look, I messed up.
Away.
I messed up. What can I say? I messed up. All right, I'm guilty. Don't you look at me like that, Leonard. You know that we need to talk about overwintering right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Backyard Gardens podcast.
If you like what we're doing and you want to continue to support the podcast, head over to our Patreon page to sign up.
You can also make a one-time donation using PayPal. Both of these links are in the description.
With your support, we can continue growing and helping others in their gardens. See ya.
It was bullet time and podcasts. We definitely made it happen there. We dodged bullets like you wouldn't believe. So,
I mean, that's not even. We couldn't cover off on that even in a mini-sode.
No.
Like, there's so much
That was a mini-sode.
there. Yeah, right. There's so much there, and but I'm glad that we were able to scratch the surface. How about that?
We definitely scratched. So, overwintering. So, in my mind, there's a couple things. Can I outline what overwintering is?
You absolutely can.
So overwintering is when you're trying to keep a plant alive that would normally die in the cold. So it can be outside, inside, pulling it up, covering it, whatever. Okay. And I don't want to call it a trend, but I'm seeing it more and more where people are digging up plants and bringing them inside to try and make them so they can get a head start for next year when they put them back outside. Is that safe to say?
I feel like when you're interested in a red car, you just realize you see a lot of red cars.
You know what?
So I'm not sure.
I'm totally with you on that one. I just, I keep my eyes open for the show when I'm perusing social medias and stuff like that about what people are talking about. And that may be what they think I want to see and are putting. That's a whole nother conversation. The tinfoil hat is not coming out right now. I swear, people. I'm trying to keep it at bay.
I do get that question from passersby in the front yard garden. It's a version of that is, so what's going to happen at the end of the year? It's
going to get cold. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, right. What's going to happen? Or it may be plainly put like, what's going to happen when it gets cold, right? Do you have to plant this every year, right? And so it's funny, and these are Chicagoans, right? So it's funny because while clearly we see things like trees that, go dormant and then come back. So people get the concept of that. But I think they ask it like, you did all of this work and that's it? You just get 1 year out of it?
That's all you're going to get? You stupid. That's what they say.
Yeah. That's the body language as I read. But I said that to say, like, I think the idea of making something last longer is absolutely a concept for non-gardeners and gardeners. Right? Like, I've had people say, well, can't you just... That used to be one of my favorite sayings for work. Like, can't we just? And it's always a bad idea on the other end of that. Right. I do want to, and you take this and place it in this episode where you want.
I'm going to place it right here at this exact moment.
So remember how we talk about seasonal eating, which you and your family are really big on. And we talk, throughout episodes around growing things in the time they're supposed to grow in. Is overwintering, is that just us just really pushing the envelope, trying to do something that really isn't meant to be?
Well, so you're trying to pull it out of me early.
This is my version of going off the reservation like yours was a few minutes ago with the question.
You're forcing me to say my beliefs now, and I was trying to save it, but...
No, I said take that comment and then you can sprinkle it in.
I'm sprinkling it in. Yes, it is. It is. And I think what it is, and I mean, I'm sure, look, this is just my opinion. It's an act of desperation because people don't want to see something go away. And most commonly, if we let's keep it to the food world for a few minutes. Peppers is a big one because like peppers like to grow in heat. And so like right now, my jalapenos are filled to the brim every year. They don't really start kicking off until this time of year. And I don't know why. It's like the end of the season and then they just start boom, boom, boom. And I think it's just because it takes so long to get there that I think it's, people really want to keep these things going. And for obvious reasons. I mean, who doesn't want a fresh pepper in the middle of winter, And the shit you get from the grocery store does not taste the same. It just doesn't. Or you have a different, I mean, so when you go to the grocery store, what can you get? Bell pepper, jalapeno. Yeah. That's it. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't even grow a bell pepper. I grew lipstick peppers. I grew Jimmy Nordella peppers. I had jalapenos. I think I had a Sir Purple pepper. Not sure. That's a super secret pepper.
I did. Yeah. Well, no. I had one of Sir Purple's peppers, not the Sir
I believe I had Sir
pepper.
Purple. So, which is a delicious, delicious pepper. Yeah. Leonard's like, yeah, it burnt me up, but that's a different story. But it's, it's good. So we want to do that now. I'm going to go ahead and put it out here. I alluded to this last week because our listener question was this. I don't believe in overwintering peppers. I don't believe in it. I don't want to do it. I have no time for it because it steals the joy of me watching the plant grow from seed. I like to watch my peppers grow from seed and have that feeling of, yes, I grew it from nothing to this, and then the life cycle ended and it was done. It's not meant to be a perennial where I am, and that's how I am. I don't want the care for it in the wintertime either. I just don't want to take that effort. So that's me.
So,
It's okay. You don't have to agree with me.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to figure out if it's really me just flat out disagreeing with you. So let me just say this. I have, for the first time this year, had the feeling of like sadness around peppers and less about tomatoes. And maybe it's because you've made me bash tomatoes and my obsession with them for the last year and a half. Or maybe it's that. Yeah, maybe I'm just moving on.
So rude.
But I have so many pepper flowers and buds, and I'm looking at them and saying, you never stood a chance. Like, you know, it's not going to happen for you, right? And peppers oftentimes require it's less work than, let's say, insert a tomato, right? So, I mean, I get it. For sure, for me, I grow in containers quite a bit. And I really have no desire either. And, you know, I love houseplants. So one could argue, all right, treat it like a houseplant. I really have no desire, this is the part where I agree with you, in caring for a pepper plant. And maybe it's because, and now I'm actually teetering on this, maybe it's because I just don't believe it's going to produce fruit. And so if it's not going to produce fruit during the winter, then I'm not bringing it inside of the house, because while sure I'm going to get a head start next year, the reality is I can wait until my peppers start to produce next year.
Yeah.
And there's this little bitty thing of, I love the idea of deciding the things I'm going to grow each year.
See, that's the thing too, is what if you want to grow a different, variety, and you save this diamond pepper for the whole winter, and you're like, you know what? I don't really want to grow it. Now you're stuck with this damn pepper that you feel like you're married to.
Yeah.
And
you've made this commitment.
Yeah, you've made a commitment, and I'm very non-committal to what I'm growing. So there's that too.
Now, I do believe for people in milder climates that, so maybe not even your zone, maybe a zone above you and higher, like maybe if it's you got to put them in the garage for a month and then pull them back out. Maybe I could get down with that.
Yeah.
But the idea of overwintering them, bringing them inside for like 2, 3, 4, 5 months even, like that part just doesn't appeal to me at this stage in my gardening life. Could be different in the future. But yeah, I have too many things I got to nurse already. You see me picking off leaves in the background, just... I like the idea also of being able to break and this is the thing I'm caring for and I'm moving on to something different.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, I believe you can get them to produce. That's not an issue with me. Mm-hmm. All right. Sorry, I had a little situation arise. So everything, when the peppers are producing, I don't think I'm going to get enough peppers to justify all the effort. Mm-hmm. How's that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, my pause was, as I was talking about it, like, I love a good garden experiment. And if I didn't have the concern, because I'm bringing houseplants in like now.
Right.
Right. So it's not like I don't take advantage of taking some houseplants outside during the summer, crazy growth, and then bringing them back in. So that is totally a thing. Right. I wouldn't say that I'm overwintering the plants that really predominantly are inside. But I brought that up because after 1 or 2 experiences of some icky bugs and crap, it's kind of like it's not even worth it for me, And so my house plants I am a bit more careful of, and I feel like for me I've lucked out, and those house plants don't attract as many nasty creatures as some of my pepper plants. But there is this small piece of me that's like only because I want to see if they're going to produce peppers. But I'm probably not going to do it this year.
Right. And so it's not just...
It's a long way around to say, like, summer plants I ain't about.
No. And it's not just about pepper plants either. I mean, that's what a lot of people are doing. But if you think about it, it's, dahlias is another big one where people will pull the tubers out of the ground and bring them inside in order to protect them for the wintertime.
I'm going to need you to step off.
I know.
I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you. So I hate all of that shit, but I'm absolutely doing it this year. This is the first year I planted tubers for dahlias. And add it to my list of overwintering.
Yeah, I mean, and it's fun, and I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want to take the effort. Now, the only way that so I'm blessed is, for me, like if it got cold, I could put a thick layer of mulch on top of them, and they would do fine. I've had a couple come back. They're planted in the wrong spot, so they don't bloom. But I do know that they're there. I need to move those. Mental note. All right, it's done. But, that's something that people do. They pull stuff up and bring them inside for the winter. And it's a lot of effort that I'm not willing to go through for this stuff. So how do I combat it? I just plant the stuff that's for my zone.
Just a quick note before we go on to the things that probably are really designed for this. Lemon, like container lemon trees, container lime trees, like those kinds of things. I see a lot of people will bring them indoors in colder zones.
But that's a little different
like
because you're not really getting I feel like those are grown for looks, and then the side benefit is getting a lime. You know what I mean? Like, you're not getting like a bountiful harvest off of them of limes, generally speaking. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, I hear you. I think though there's something that's really cool about like going against the grain, like growing the thing that probably isn't. I think a lot of people feel this way, and sometimes I do too. Like, oh, this thing. Like, wait a minute, you're growing citrus, in Chicago? Like, yeah, man, I got 2 limes this season.
No, I had a friend who grew a key lime tree. And he would do that, bring it in, but he got a lot of key limes off because they're super small. And my theory behind super small vegetables is you get a whole lot of them. And he grew it just for his gin and tonics. He drank a lot of gin and tonics. That's different. But he was able to get those off of them. But in the wintertime, guess what he didn't get? He didn't get any limes.
Not a lime. Yeah.
So no, he didn't add lights or anything like that. It was just kind of by the window survival mode type situation.
But it does fold into an investment.
Yes.
Right? So a pepper plant is going to be less expensive than, and again, just using pepper plants as an example. I've never seen anyone try to overwinter eggplants, but that's that could have gone dirty. So we're pulling that back there.
You're not allowed to talk about eggplants or else we'll get banned everywhere. So.
Yeah, well, but lemon trees, lime trees, citrus trees, the size that you would put in a container and probably bring into your house, they're much pricier than a tomato plant or a pepper plant. So I get that. And those are some of those plants that really produce more in your second and third year, as I understand it. So every time you plant it, get some from that season, and then if you let it die, you're starting back over again next season. So I kind of get that.
And I mean, there's methods like greenhouses. You could obviously go deep, go like a full blown heated greenhouse. You can do that's a little bit different because I would say you're not really overwintering at that point. You're climate controlling, and you're going to be growing in that space, generally speaking, from like seed and then on, maybe. So, I mean, it depends on how you run your greenhouse or whatever. But I'm
going to dump it into the overwintering category because I can.
Go for it. And then bringing pots inside, container gardening inside, stuff like that. My thing is it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy to do that. It's a lot of excess care, I feel like, and that's just why I'm not a big fan of this, bringing a live plant in and keeping it alive all winter. And if God forbid let's say you brought it in and then you got a damn disease or something and you're like managing that all winter, and then the first thing you're going to want to do is like, I got to get it in the ground because it'll be okay once I get it in the ground, and you could potentially make something worse. So that's kind of an issue that we need to consider.
Yeah, if I had like a Four Seasons room, is that what they're called? Like if I had some extension onto my home that, got plenty of sun and that was more of a workshop, if you will, I probably would venture into that kind of thing. Like I am at the limit when it comes to the dirt and the water, just in like my grow rooms, like where I start my seeds at. Like I don't want any more dirt and dust, and I don't want to have a fertilization regimen during the winter. Like, I don't want any of that shit.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But, everybody's different. Everybody wants something different. So is it possible? I would say, yeah, of course it's possible. Anything's possible. I mean, you have your factors. You need water, light, food, and then you can grow. But it's just, is it going to be worth it? And I mean, so we've talked about dahlias, and then what else would you overwinter? I think I cut you. We're going to say something.
So the same. Well, I think it's the canna lilies. I actually did not dig the tubers up, which is recommended. It's a flower. Of course, it's a flower. I'm sorry about that. Canna lily is a flower. And instead, I actually harvested the seed. And I was able to produce in the same space that I grew canna lilies last year, more canna lilies, which I was really pleased with. So that leads me to, maybe I won't save the tubers, but that's another example of a tuber that you can save. A lot of your perennial flowers that are truly perennial, that may not be in your area, you can dig those up and, put them aside to plant like in the spring or whatever.
I feel like you would never get a good growth out of it, though, if you continuously dug it up every year.
I mean, I did a lot of research for the dahlias, and by research, I mean, I searched like a lot of internet websites. Yeah. And I mean, there are people that swear by it year over year over year. Think about it in the same way that you dig up and separate like a regular lily, right? Because it multiplies, right? So, I mean, I think people do it and swear by it. I think especially if you have a variety you really like, clearly it's a way to save some money, but then it's also this, you can actually get to that same plant again. So, I mean, I guess the reason why I was bringing up the canna lilies, it was more of the things that maybe people don't often overwinter, the things that aren't as traditional, like what we're about to talk about. So I just wanted to point out a couple of other things. This is what I do want, though. All of these things that we've bashed and said, never! We'd love to know if you guys are doing it and doing it successfully. Yeah. Right? So, or I should say have done it. Yeah. I think I'm going to speak of past experience.
One thing...
We keep on saying we want your gardens in the winter. So, I mean, this is a great example of...
We'll see, and that's the other thing too, is think about it this way. When it comes to overwintering, it's not just digging stuff up. It's like I alluded before with dahlias here, like it could just be putting a thick layer of mulch over it, and then that will insulate it. In up north, it could be putting snow on top of it to insulate it, like a big pile of snow. I mean, it's a number of different things. So, and I don't mind personally the mulch method. Like, that doesn't bother me. The only problem I have with that is, like, you have to go and then you have to remove the mulch in the spring. And if you did that for a lot of places, one, it would be expensive to mulch everything. And then two, you've got to remove a lot of mulch. And then you got to put that mulch somewhere else. Oh,
good gosh. The amount of piles of things like that I've had in my yard. So just a note of clarification, which I think 30 minutes in, and it may be obvious, but just in case, like, I don't know anyone that's overwintering their entire garden. So there's certain vegetables, there's certain spots in their garden maybe that they're focused on overwintering, but not the entire thing.
Well,
now,
I know somebody who does.
Do I know that person?
Yeah. So they live in Florida, and they grow.
Does that really count?
Well, hold on, because they go through periods of a week or two where they have to cover their stuff every single night in order to keep it alive. You can argue that would be considered overwintering.
I was all set to say, well, I said I didn't know the person. And you're like, yeah, I know them. Like, God damn it. Okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, think about the effort to go out and cover your garden every night for a period of time. And I'm not talking about like, oh, we're going to get one frost. It'll be, I mean, let's be real. Okay. It's like a week or two maybe, but they do definitely cover.
That's still a commitment.
That's a commitment. Yeah. And then they pull it off every day. And there's all that. And then the other thing is building like low tunnels and stuff like that. So that's another kind of aspect behind this too that you have to think about, is like building a low tunnel is also overwintering. It can be overwintering, not necessarily, but
Yeah, I wonder if, so I keep on going back to the definition I have on the interweb about overwintering, and I'm going to go ahead and give you that one. You and the gardener in Florida. So I think that on the one hand, well, clearly it's dedication. So I got two hands here. On one hand, I wonder if that is good because it gets you back out into the garden, even if for a minute, even if it's to cover at night and then the next morning to uncover. Mm-hmm. Then on the other hand, I wonder if it's like, do you begrudge it? You know,
I would get to begrudge it after a couple days of it.
Yeah, but then if it's only 2 weeks, you know, I'd be sitting out late nights, early mornings, covering it and uncover mine if it was 2 weeks and then I'm back to normal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that. I find it interesting, though, the measures that various gardeners take in their gardens. It makes me a little bit weepy because, I mean, you talk about the dedication and the love that people have to do any of the things we're talking about.
Well, we just posted on Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram a listener in Zone 3 and his greenhouse that he is building and working on in order to get greens up until Christmas. In our discussions, and I hope to talk about this more in depth at a later date, but he can get negative 40 below, like commonly. So just think about that dedication that individual is putting in, and the budget that he is going off of is not that bad. Thinking of, you know, what it would take to go through that, like his budget that he set is not all that high for that extreme dedication and passion that he has for gardening. Go.
So, cue the music, Leonard. Did you ever know that you're my hero? Yeah. You know how, like, so you've lived in Massachusetts, so you know how we can get in the winter. We get kind of edgy, and it's like someone that's in some warm or southern place that talks about, oh, it was cold, and we're like, you don't know cold.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm that version of like the southerner that's like, well, it was, 5 degrees below zero, and our buddy in Canada is like, hold my beer,
Yeah, there's no rush. So it's crazy. But I mean, it's very, it speaks to the amount of passion that people have for gardening, because I'm not the only person in the world that does it. You know what I mean? There's people all over that try and do stuff like that. So, and there's actually some really good YouTube channel. They only made like a handful of videos and then they got out of the game quick, but they made like really good quality videos, and it was based up north in the lower zones, and they had some really good information on there. So I can't remember the name of it. I would give it out, but I don't remember the name of it. So
have you ever heard the story? I'm going to botch this, about, what happens after the first person runs a 4-minute mile. How like it hadn't been recorded for decades and decades. Yeah. And then you have the first guy, Roger Bannister, I think is, in the 50s. And if someone knows that it was someone else before him, forgive me. But he ran the first recorded 4-minute mile. And then you fast forward and you hear, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have since done it, right? Everything from full on, professional athletes to high school kids. So I bring this up, so our buddy in Canada, and I assume that we haven't asked to say his name. That's the reason why we're not saying his name. Okay. So, no, mate isn't what we'd say for there. But anyway, so like, I'm so interested because I'm rooting for his greens in December, but it's also that moment of give me a reason to believe that I can do the same, right? Like the equivalent of this greenhouse and this 4-minute mile. I'm just like, wait a minute. Greens at Christmas, New Year's? Well, you see how I'm going to push this? Valentine's Day greens? I don't know, right? So
yeah, and it's actually cool. It gave me access to his weather station, so I can look at the weather inside and outside. And I'm always curious about like northern latitudes, like how fast because the other day I looked at it and I was like, oh, it's about the same as here. And now I'm looking and look, me and Celsius are not friends, but it's like 40 degrees there, where here it's 80. You know what I mean? So it's like it dropped really fast. And then I go to...
Oh, that's such a key note to make.
Yeah. And then I can look at the greenhouse and see like how much warmer it is in the greenhouse. And he's still working on it. And at the time of working on it, it's like 8 degrees warmer. So, and then that being said, it's also cloudy, so he's not getting the sun to go in. But it also gets dark up there, you know, all this other stuff. So that being said, it's just very interesting to see that. And I mean, now that people maybe in zone 3 know that there's somebody doing it, maybe they will do it and continue to do it, and maybe it'll, you know, maybe I'll, just like the whole 4-minute mile thing, maybe I'll up my game and I'll be growing a damn pineapple up in that billy goat for the rest, you know, in the future. So for me, I'm gonna go ahead and say this about greenhouses: it is not about heating it, it is about cooling it. And been out.
You were all sitting up in your chair. I thought you were going to say it. I'm going to run a 4-minute mile. Like, I think, while I hope to never live in zone 3, God bless, but I hope to never live in zone 3. If he can pull this off or get closer in zone 3, you know what that says for me in zone 6. Like, that's the thing, right? I love to be able to see, and shout out to people that comment that are like, near or in my area, because I know it means something to have someone that speaks about what they're doing that's close to you. I observe a lot of people that are in North Carolina, and I always think about you like, oh wait, I'm going to share this with Ben because they're doing this, because, you know, I'm sure he can too. But I think that
you never share any of it with me. What the hell?
I always mean to, but it's always like between. It's always between 1 a.m. and 2:30.
You ain't gonna
like,
catch
so you
me.
and my cousin, I have all kinds of things that I want to share, but it's like, listen, our relationships are clearly platonic, but y'all got wives, and I ain't sending no texts.
Nope.
I ain't sending no DMs, none of that at any of these nighttime hours or early morning hours. So then the next day, I forget about the shit, you know, and so I move on. But anyway, being able to see someone in a climate that's colder, the conditions are harsher than yours, absolutely gives us hope when it comes to what we can do in our own climate.
Yeah. Well, and you know, the thing is too, and I mean, we've gone way off topic, but the overwintering part, like, my man's
the part
goal,
2 that we're going to do to this.
my man's goal is to grow greens, not tomatoes. Like, he's walking into it with a realistic goal in mind.
Yep.
So if you guys want to see kind of what he sent me, go check out Backyard Gardens podcast, Backyard Gardens TV on Instagram, and then you can go from there, whatever you need to do. It's the only person that sent me a picture of a greenhouse. Dude, if you got a greenhouse, send it to us. I would like to see it. We'll share it, whatever. Like, I'm all about a greenhouse. So yeah, and there's different methods used to heating it, so that's very interesting as well. But back to the overwintering, now that we've digressed, or, you know, taken a detour. I don't think, for me, overwintering, other than covering stuff with mulch, is something that I want to get into. I've stated in the past that I like the break, and each year my break gets shorter and shorter. I mean, hell, I got to start my seeds the week of Christmas for the next year, because I can get some of them out so early, so I don't really get much of a break. So I don't really want to have that in the house, because at some point I'm going to have a couple hundred seedlings in my house to take care of. And that's kind of my fix. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think I do want to comment on the mulch. And again, it's very effective, and it's a way that I am going to kind of extend my season, a way that I'm going to overwinter. And some of these things for me are not going to, how should I say? Well, I won't go there. We'll come back around to that at some other point and in some future episode. There's some things that are cold hardy that will absolutely benefit from mulch. Most things will, like heavy mulch, but there are things that are not meant in your zone to be in the ground during the winter. So in some of those cases, the heaviest of mulch, you still are going to have a dead plant at the roots.
Yeah.
So just look into it before you get a dumpster of wood chips. Haha, get it? And I don't like, just as a side note, I don't like how you're basically declaring that we don't like wood chips.
You did
I still
that.
I still want to love them.
You said it yourself.
I still want to love them. We're on a break.
Hey, look.
I'm trying to figure out if they're going to get their act together and maybe we can coexist. That's not where we are now. But, I mean, this thing isn't final.
Hey, look, I'm
saying.
getting wood chips for my flower beds.
Okay. All right.
You know what's interesting, too? I have no roly-polies in my flower beds. They were only in my vegetable garden. WTF.
Yeah, they probably enjoy the eats in the vegetable garden more so than the flower bed.
Here we go.
Or
we have a roly-poly scientist in our hands, everybody.
Yeah. As I was saying, and it's kind of like, you're kind of BSing here,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think that was in my tone, right? Or they're there and you just can't see them because the flower bed is so full and lush.
No, mine's actually not. So mine is bare. I'm remodeling it as we speak. But yeah, I like to. So let's say you're going to mulch let me say this too. You can also mulch the top and around pots too. You don't even have to move them sometimes. You can also do that. I am going
creating insulation is what you're doing. Right.
I use straw for everything because I always have a bale of it around. Wood chips is definitely an option. Compost is an option, but it wouldn't be very good because you'd have to remove it, and then it'd be very hard to tell where the surface was or anything like that. But what else?
So leaves is a mulch, but
damn.
Two notes on that. One, it's a lighter form. It's not as heavy as some of the other things you've talked about. And there is this idea of just protecting your soil from the elements. And leaves does a great job at that. You'd really need think about the texture, if you will, or the consistency of leaves. They're pretty light, right? So you need a really heavy layer if you're using them for the purpose of overwintering a plant that you want to try to keep alive during the winter. So just,
Right. And you can also, instead of shredding them, you could just lay them down thick whole because they wouldn't break down as much, but they would form more of a mat. But the problem with that is it could stop water from penetrating the soil. So that's something you need to look out for.
I've done that part before, the leaving them whole, and not for the purpose of overwintering anything in the garden, but again, protecting the soil.
Nature does that for me. So I just, and I think that's always been a thing. Like I remember as a kid, we'd go out in the spring and you would just brush all the leaves that fell from the fall away, and then you'd have all these plants coming up. So that's also a method. But look, that's overwintering in a nutshell. A very cracked open nutshell. I'm not a fan of it. I like to watch my things grow. I'm sorry, everybody. Batavia, are you a fan of it?
I would be if I continue. I will be if I continue to see more success. In my mind, it's the return on the investment of time and energy, just really isn't there. I am going to make some simple steps like covering some beds, but it really is more about getting a head start on the spring. It's my great desire to be like our buddy in Canada and actually harvest things in January, but I'm not there yet.
One day.
Yeah.
You're just not passionate enough about gardening yet.
Clearly not.
And on that note, we're going to come back with a delicious recipe of the day. A lot of y'all asked, how can you help support the Backyard Gardens podcast? Well, we have been busy and we have created a t-shirt line just for the gardener.
To visit our shop, go to the link in the show notes and check out the t-shirts and other goodies we have.
Now, these are super special t-shirts designed just for the gardener, so enjoy. Thank you for supporting the Backyard Gardens podcast, and we'll see you guys after the harvest. So I did a YouTube short a couple weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. And I said, at some point I became a radish farmer. And this was the year for me where I was like, I'm going to grow radishes one more time. And I'm going to figure out a better way to eat them because I'm tired of eating them raw. And so I began to cook them. And then somebody said, and so on the short, I said, I have a lot of radishes growing. I hated them, and now I love them once I learned how to cook them. Well, I didn't give any recipes or anything like that. And I think I've given one on here before, but it's beneficial for me to just say it again because it's so amazing that it just blew my mind, because there's this little vegetable that people put into salads and you're like, oh, yay, it's good. I can't even taste it. So what I do is I preheat my oven. Guess what I preheat it to, Batavia?
400.
Damn, you don't listen to me. My oven has two temperatures, 425 or 450. That's it. That's all I ever cook at.
Yeah.
So I take my radishes. If they're small, leave them whole. If they're big, I cut them, in half, bite-sized, and I toss them in an oil. So depends on what you're cooking. If you want basic, use olive oil. If you want to have some kind of Asian flavor, use sesame oil. And then I coat them in salt and pepper. You can add whatever else you would like at this point. Always salt and pepper, though. I've done garlic. I've done onion powder. I've done... I usually add like cayenne pepper to it or something like that. If I had some more of that Dracula pepper powder that I had gotten this summer, I'd put that on there, but it's hot as fire. And then I just roast it for about 15, 20 minutes. Just keep an eye on it until it gets to the tenderness that you like. So you want a little bit of crunch, but more importantly, you want them to be brown. And it's a totally different flavor. It's really good. And then at the same time while you're doing this, I also will throw in onions, Brussels sprouts, and then you could throw in some squash or something like that. A lot of times if we bake something in the oven like this, we'll bake a whole bunch of vegetables at once and use that as a meal. But this pertains particularly to the radishes. So it's a really good way to eat them. It's super simple. And honestly, in one season, it took me from radishes are going to be on the chopping block to their forefront in my fall, spring gardens. So
yeah. So I'm going to give you a pass on a similar recipe that you gave last month. And I'm going to give you the pass because I, too, was like, what the hell with radishes? I'm going to give them another try. It wasn't my final try, but another try. And either I didn't plant them early enough in the spring, or fall is really the time for me. I've seen such great success, and I'm so glad that you shared the recipe again because I'd forgotten about it from last month, and now I have like a full harvest of radishes. So I'm definitely going to use that. I'm also going to try next spring to do some succession planting to figure out if the timing could be right for spring and radishes, or if fall is really my time to shine for my radish farm. Yeah,
and let me tell you that I had always grown French breakfast radishes just because that's kind of like what I got. And then now I'm growing French breakfast, champion, and watermelon radishes. So I've gone from one 1 year, I've gone from one variety that's going on the chopping block to never be used again to having 3 varieties and basically a 4x8 bed. If I combine them all, it'd be about a 4x8 bed filled with them, and planning to succession sow and also put them in the greenhouse. So it just totally changed the way I look at it. It's very interesting how that is because I never knew that you could cook radishes.
Yeah. How are your leaves holding up? I have some damage, but a lot of the leaves are healthy, and I've been using the green tops as well.
Yeah, I don't use the green tops, but you know what? I'm not against it. You know what? I'll saute green tops now. I haven't harvested any yet. I just got them in the ground. There's some that are starting. I'm waiting for them to plump up, but when they do, booyah. So
yeah, I told you all last time I actually have a package of radishes that says 25 days, and I actually harvested the radish on the 25th day. Mind blown. Yeah. Like, wait, you said a thing? And it was true.
Yeah. I even made space this year and saved seeds from a radish, which was not as productive as I would like. I did not get as many seeds off of one plant as you would really need for radishes. So that was very interesting to me. But
I have to go and collect my radish seeds. I have some from the spring that are still out there.
Yeah. So good, interesting note about radishes. When you save the seed, they do not bust open and spread the seed themselves. You have to do it. So you can leave them out there like you did.
Yeah, they don't self-sow, which actually I think is a good thing because I'd like to be able to turn that bed into something completely different and not just have radishes pop up. Yeah. Quick note, because we're now trying to convince you, to take the radish leap. Heat equals radishes often bolting, and then also heat contributes to the spicy flavor that some people don't like. The peppery flavor,
but
not spicy.
If you roast them, the peppery flavor is definitely doable. Not good in a salad, but roasted, it makes it amazing.
Yep.
So
I feel like all vegetables at one point or another should see their time, at 450 in your oven, I guess.
Yeah.
But see their time on a pan and be roasted.
Right. So there's that simple recipe. If anybody ever asks you, this is what I told the person on YouTube. Coat in oil, season the way you like, and roast. That was all I said, and I think everybody kind of gets the idea. Like, I don't need to tell you how to roast. So
yeah, stay near the oven though, because most of those radishes are small. You don't want to get too far. Don't cook these from the couch like I normally do.
Go get you some binoculars and just wait for the smoke.
Wait for the smoke. You have a couple of sacrificial radishes in there. You cut smaller.
Hey, look,
it's like when those start smoking.
It is what it is. So everybody, I hope that you have taken something out of this and decided how or if or when you want to overwinter. One thing I'm going to overwinter is myself. I'm going to stay warm so I can grow big and strong next year. But, if you feel so inclined, please think about becoming a patron. It really helps us out. Buying a t-shirt will also help us out. And Amazon link below for our shop to tell you all the products that we use and recommend. All of that stuff helps us keep this show going so we can focus and make more content for you. And on that note, stay safe, be strong. Don't let the cold get you down. Get yourself a hot cup of tea and just start planning. And until next time.
See ya.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you want to see what we're up to or just stay up to date on all the announcements regarding the show or anything gardening, then you can follow us on Instagram at Backyard Gardens TV.
We love seeing what you guys are doing, so use hashtag BYG podcast in your posts, and we'll be sharing your gardens with the Backyard Gardens community.
And check us out on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we will post this show, all of our other shows, clips, and then also some gardening tips and just gardening entertainment. And you can see us at our website at backyardgardenstv.com. But that's it for today's show. So help us as we learn to grow and grow for change. And until next time, we'll catch you guys later. We'll call this one a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.